what my formula is to get the house for 5,000 or less, 10,000 or less, whatever the tax sale is gradually going up, and then to be all in for no more than 30,000.
You're listening to 5 Hour Real Estate Week, where you'll learn to consistently buy real estate in only 5 hours a week. So if you're ready to invest in real estate, achieve financial freedom, and own the lifestyle you deserve, even with your job, this is the show for you. Now, here's your host, Mike Butler.
Okay, hello, fellow investors, and welcome to another episode of the 5 Hour Real Estate Week. And I've got a very special guest for you today on our Winter Wednesdays. And this lady is going to impress you, okay, as much as she has impressed me over the years. We go back to, I'll give you just a brief background about her. She's got one of them doctorate things in front of her name. So I don't know if she's a psychologist or psychiatrist. One of them can write prescriptions, and I don't know the difference between the two. But she's got a full-time practice. And I met Joanne, probably her coming to one of my live events, I'm going to guess anywhere from 12 to 15 years ago. I didn't have time to look it up, but it's been a while. And she's just, do what, Joanne?
It's at least 10 years. I know that.
Yeah, at least 10 years. Okay. So sometimes 10 years, what we think is 10 years turns into 15.
Right.
Okay. And so she's over in, I believe, South Carolina.
Yes, Greenville,
and she still has her full-time doctorate practice that I think she might have cut back a little bit on her hours. And she is just a what do you call it? Tasmanian devil is what I'll call it when it comes to real estate. You heard the old saying, you can make lemon out of lemonades. Not this lady. This lady takes lemons and turns it into champagne. Okay.
Right.
And so how about this? We'll just dig right into it here, Joanne. And thank you for being scheduling time in your busy day to work me into it so you can benefit everybody that's listening to our podcast here. And how about, do you remember that first boot camp, some of the ahas that you got or what compelled you to come to learn from Mike?
I do, Mike. One reason I chose to learn from you, and I think you're going to be surprised about this, is that I value people who value their family and their relationships. So I actually learned from people who choose to be married a long time and work out the nitty-gritty of marriage, and then are really serious about raising their kids and letting them turn out the best they want to be, whether it's in real estate or not. So I don't choose to listen to people who get divorced multiple times or put their family totally on the back burner. I think this is a business and a lifestyle that works best with the family on board to whatever extent they care to be.
Perfect. So, okay. Yeah. And, you know, as much as I wanted my daughters to be in real estate, they didn't do that. You know, one's a charge nurse now and at the VA hospital. She starts in just a couple of days. And the other is the vice president of a daggone credit union. They're both married, happy, healthy, that's safe, right. Secure. And you know what? That's what I want for my kids. And
exactly.
Yeah, and I get to spend time with them.
Not everybody is like that, Mike. Not everybody is a family man as well as being a husband and a real estate investor.
Yeah, so I'm coming to you live from a hotel room right now because my bride has got our home rented out on VRBO to pay for her new big swimming pool porch. So,
okay.
Happy wife, happy life. Okay.
That's great. And another thing that impressed me, I came to you specifically because you have a law enforcement background. I don't have that. And I realized that having that point of view would be very helpful in the real estate business. You know, I just had no understanding of that, yet I knew that it was going to be a different world than being a clinical psychologist. A whole different life. Okay, so I appreciated the law enforcement perspective added in. It was very practical advice. Then I think the first thing that impressed me was the idea of long-term tenants, screening for who you wanted, because turnovers are expensive.
Woo.
And, having your whole system set up with like-minded people, who understand the program. So I have used your Rent Talk videos and discussion since the beginning and every single time. And if I get clues from people like they're sort of cringing, then I know we're not really going to work, because your system, I've modeled mine after that. So I am looking for the same type of people. And the video is a really non-threatening way to get to the core of what kind of renters they're going to be.
Yeah, I like it when you said you want to watch their body language and facial expressions as they watch Rent Talk. Boy,
Exactly.
I could see you doing that. And you go, ooh, that ain't good. So
yeah, I'm just doing my things in the background, but then I'm watching them, so I'm not staring at them, but I am observing them, while I'm getting together the paperwork or whatever else I need to do. And that's the very first thing they do when they walk into the office. And so then I ask them if, what questions they have. And they usually have good questions. But people have, especially in South Carolina, we have a lot of people renting that are not on the same page that I am.
Well, I believe that's everywhere, USA.
Oh.
Okay, because I got them too.
Right.
And you show that Rent Talk video to them first, don't you?
Very first thing when they walk in.
This is after they're approved. This is not before they're.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just want everybody to know that where's this in the steps of what to do. This is after they've been approved. She scheduled an appointment for them to come into the office, bring their money, their renter's insurance policy, security deposit. That's the first thing they get is the Rent Talk. And we've got the 2.0 version out now too. So that's good. So do you remember anything about your first 3 years in the business? What life was like and biggest challenges?
Oh, well, the first 3 years in the business, what I did and what I do recommend for people that you don't hear all the time is that to do a really fearless, brutally honest self-assessment when you're getting into the business up front, to look at what work experiences you've had, what skill sets you've developed, and see which ones will transfer over to real estate, because they won't all transfer over. But if you're looking for it, they will transfer over. Like, for example, my people skills, and the ability to make diagnoses and then treat people accordingly in a way that will help them, as opposed to bring out their ugly side of people. So really keeping the whole person in mind, that was an advantage, to be able to talk to people, lots of different people, and ask them difficult questions, and just really.
Well, I'd like to bring up a little bit about my first 3 years. So my first 3 years, I was just a detective, a police officer. Guess how much real estate knowledge I had? Zero. I screwed up big time. My first application was Office Depot. And what I learned was, because now remember, in the recruit school, they give you a lot of mindset of confidence and authoritative, and that'll make your life easier on the street when you're dealing with folks, so that you're not in a fight every time you bump into somebody. Use your brain, use your mind. And so that was what I guess, had groomed into me maybe during the recruit school, but none of that really worked over in real estate. And so if you heard what Joanne said, and you're going to do a self-assessment, which I encourage you to do, okay, I should have done it, but I didn't, okay? The things that, by being on this podcast here and learning from experts like Joanne did, if the things that you think that you're short in that department, you can learn those skills, okay? And that's what, to me, that's what it's all about, is education, and learning knowledge is what gives you the power and the skills and the tools to do that. And it's paid off big time for Joanne.
I do have to say, Mike, that the other thing you have to look at when you have a full-time job is how many hours do you realistically have available? And when are those hours? You know, like what days of the week and what hours of the day? And so my very first, the only thing I could do is research because I had nighttime.
Yeah, burning the
And
midnight
so,
oil.
yeah, and so I researched a whole lot of things because I wasn't a realtor. I didn't know the neighborhoods and streets and all that. So that was what my first 5 hours did, is it showed me the lay of the land. I researched neighborhoods I was interested in and the sale prices of all the houses. And I just went door to door to door. And what I noticed is that sometimes these houses were bought for very little money, way less than you would ever expect.
Yeah.
You know, when I bought my first few properties, I used a realtor and I bought condos because I thought that would take less time because the whole outside would be taken care of. You know, like realistically, I wouldn't have to maintain the outside. And I bought 4 in a very short amount of time. And as soon as I found out what I was doing, I was told, and this was in 2006, that I needed to sell those because I had not bought them correctly.
Okay.
You know, when I went and got professional advice, I had paid too much. I didn't know what you really needed to pay
So you took
in
a
order for
seminar.
it to work out long term.
Seminar, School of Hard Knocks.
I did. And so I listened. You have to listen to people giving you advice. And they said, you're just going to have to sell all of those and you better do it quick, because the people that I was with, the Jack Miller crowd, we were told that 2008 was coming.
Wow.
And so
Great.
by 2006, they were saying, go to cash, go to cash, go to cash. You know, if you got any investment that's questionable, that you shouldn't have bought, you didn't buy it right,
Now's the
you
time
need
to
to
sell.
sell it now.
Doesn't that sound familiar in today's market?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing I like about you, Mike, is that you don't say what everybody else says. And neither did Jack Miller. I mean, his ideas were not all that popular, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he told people what they did not want to hear. And so
Oh, but they did not want to hear. Yes.
oh, yeah, what you do not want to hear, that's what you would hear. So I didn't want to hear that I was wrong buying my first 3 properties, but I listened and I sold 3 of them. So then I had to start completely over. So then was the research phase. Like I had to see, well, how low can you possibly get these properties for? So when I was doing my research, looking from house to house, I was like, who's deal? And so then I would keep track of who those people were and where they were and try to meet them.
Yes. Yes. And
That's what I did, because that's all the time that I had was, you know, at night after I got home, you know, kids were in bed and all that. That's all the time I had. So that's how I chose to use it. And it got me in the ballpark of what I needed to be paying.
cool. So today, as your veteran, professional, successful investor, how long does it take you to walk through a house to handicap it as far as repairs go before you make your offer?
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, your advice helped me on that a lot, because I learned back in the era of the PIS cards, you know, the handwritten PIS cards that you had. And your advice to me at that time was, don't go through a property unless you're going to make an offer on it.
That's the investor pledge. You got it.
I love it. And then so that eliminates quite a few. You know, if you don't like something enough to make an offer on it, which you can almost tell that on paper or a drive-by.
Yes, you can.
Then you don't go through it. So I went through, like I had criteria. I didn't want a really short crawl space. You know, like I had stuff that I was looking for that were real practical based on hard knocks. And so everyone I went through, I made an offer, and that gave me a lot of practice making offers.
So what if you didn't want it if you walked through it? Did you still make an offer?
Yeah, because you told me to.
Yeah, even if ridiculous. I love it. Thank you, Joanne. That's
Even
perfect.
if it was ridiculous. Oh, I made a lot of ridiculous offers.
It did.
Lot.
All right.
And
Yeah, I did too.
acquisitions.
Did some of them get accepted?
Yes. my favorite kind of deals to do are seller financing deals. And being a psychologist, one of the ways that I can get properties is by being comfortable with family feuds, like with heirs that don't get along and people that don't trust each other and all that. Properties that other people would skip over, that, and I feel like I can handle it, I do that. And so I've been able to get a lot of good deals that way. Yeah, I once had a closing where more than 20 people showed up. And the attorney was saying,
Okay.
what? And so they were all there. I said, these people don't trust each other. And so they have to be at the closing to really know what happened and that it was fair and that this is what happened. And so they were all sitting around the edges of the room. They had to get a bunch more chairs. And so we had the closing. And the closing involved seller financing. So the thing is to listen to your advice, and when it sounds strange, just do it anyway and see how it works.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt you, because what kind of offer are you making? Ridiculous.
Whatever will work for you.
Yeah.
Whatever will work. And also what I do, Mike, is that when I do deals, I always leave room in it for the other people, because I want to be able to do multiple deals. Like this family with a family feud, they were a real estate family. And so if you can get in with 20 people at a time, then you're going to have more opportunity to do deals because you're fair, you do what you say, and they trust you. Like they had to trust me with seller financing, and they did.
And so you got 20 walking, talking billboards for Joanne.
Right.
Don't try to cut their throat and squeeze every nickel out of every deal. That's great.
Absolutely not. You want them. People end up saying, I just wish I had more property to sell to you.
Can you give us a brief, say 30 seconds overview of your lemonade to champagne deal? I recall that, but I don't remember the numbers.
All right. Well, yeah, those are great things. So after by the time I did my research and sold all the condos, then the next thing I decided was that my niche should be tax sales. And by then it's 2008, 2009, and they're starting to go to tax sale, but everybody else is super scared. They're just hunkered down, super scared. But I remember I wasn't scared at all. I thought, well, that's a kid in a candy store. Because at that point, I go where other people aren't. There was no one at the tax sales, not anybody. And so I was able to get, lots and lots and lots of properties. I got a combination of houses and land because I knew I couldn't do that many houses for $1,500, $3,000, and less than the price of the lot, in other words. And
Wow.
They were mostly properties of other investors that had been started on a rehab, but they just gave up and walked away.
Yeah.
So I would pay the one you were talking about. Oh, that's actually a good story. But that one was $1,500, and it was a
That's for a house now.
Yeah, 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
Can you show me pictures of that ugly thing?
Like, Mike and I don't always agree on things. He said, you're not going to do anything with that. That's just a
dumpster.
And I said, because I know what it will sell for eventually. So what my formula is to get the house for like $5,000 or less, $10,000 or less, whatever. The tax sale is gradually going up, and then to be all in for no more than $30,000. And that often included adding a second bathroom, because I wanted everything to be 3-bedroom, 2 bath. So I wouldn't buy a house unless I could figure out how to do that. And so I was all in for $30,000. And so the rents back then were lower. So I had to say, look, I assume I'm going to make every mistake in the book. but it doesn't matter what, my budget's my budget, period. And no contractor, nobody is going to talk me into, you got to have a really sharp pencil. So 30,000 was in it, all in, and it sold for a little over 100.
And what period of time?
Well, that was a little slow because I had to clear the title and everything. So I would, and it was in about an hour away. It's maybe 3 years. 3 years.
But most of that time was clearing the title. And so listen to those numbers, guys. She bought it for 15, got less than 30 in it, sells it for 100.
I bought it for $1,500.
Bought it $1,500. Yeah.
$100.
That
and my budget was go up to 30. And that house has been good for other people since then.
Still in service.
A couple other people have come in, and now that thing's up to 150,000. So everybody has been able to, I left enough room in it so it would appeal to people. Other people could come in and do something with it and feel good about it.
Okay. I remember you and I having several calls on how vendors took you down the School of Hard Knocks. What did you learn and how did you overcome that? Everybody has those problems.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, if you find a good vendor, they know other good vendors. Like, good people travel in packs, and poor people don't even have a pack because other people don't want to work with them. They just show up and I can do anything. I can start right away. And so I had to gradually keep going up and up and up with my criteria for the workers and crews. And we worked with a lot of people who were retired electricians, plumbers, people like that. And not the younger guys with the great big new truck. If I saw that, I was like, I don't think we can afford that truck.
Yeah, because you're paying.
I just don't think we can. And so, that's what I thought is probably not going to work because they got to have the truck. That's their priority. Whereas retired people, they've already made it. They're just doing it because they want to stay active. They have more time. They have so much knowledge because most of our houses were older. So they were a store of knowledge.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I know you had some other things written down that you'd like to share, but before we get to those, I want to thank you for being on this podcast and this episode. And could you tell us about briefly your last 12 months and where you want to be in 3 to 5 years and maybe like what your daily routine is now because of your real estate investments?
Okay. Well, I do want to mention another product of yours, Mike, that has, just really saved our butt so many times. And that is your tenant tracking and investor books.
Wow.
System. That's huge for us because I'm not an accountant. I'm not a spreadsheet wizard, but I really liked how you separate what goes to the accountant and then what you need to operate your property management business.
Yeah, what your tenants owe. Yeah, your property management.
So that anybody that has tenants, I recommend your system all the time because there's others that are out there, but I don't think they're as good. I just don't think they're as good, and they're not as easy to use. And you keep improving it. Yes,
that's true. Okay, so it keeps getting better. It uses QuickBooks, so if something happens to me, you're going to be okay. Are you worried about if I die tomorrow, your business?
Well, I'd rather you didn't die tomorrow, so that's why I get after you.
I'm talking about your investor books and tenant tracking. Okay.
Right. Yeah, we're set with that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about me on that at all. Okay, so that's cool. Well, thank you. All right, so what was the other part? Last 12 months.
Last 12 months. We did well because I screened the tenants, for lots of things, what line of work they were in, their budgeting and so forth. So everybody wanted to stay in their house. They didn't
point something out, guys. I want to point something out. Did you hear what she said? Last year we did very well. How many other investors with rental properties can say that? Because that was COVID. That was COVID. She had people still paying rent during COVID because she knew how to do everything on the front end and train them. Sorry, I interrupted.
So no one wanted to move, but you know what, Mike? Everybody wanted to stay in their house, including two people who decided to stop paying rent, even though they hadn't lost their job. They were professional people. One was a banker and one was in an attorney's office. They were professional people. So I had screened them. They could definitely pay the rent, but they chose not to. They were looking for a windfall profit out of this whole thing. And so what I did is I, convinced them and urged them and wouldn't take no for an answer for them to apply for the rental assistance.
Yes.
And they didn't qualify. That's the thing that I found out early on. They didn't qualify because they hadn't lost any money. They were still working. They just were working from home.
And they were unlike some of the others that lie on those applications.
Oh, right. So they didn't qualify. So then I knew I had to get them out because they just thought nobody had to pay rent. Nobody would. So I actually had to go through and evict two people during the eviction moratorium. And so I did that by going to the courthouse. You have to have all your, they don't want you to bring your problems to court. They want to hear what you have done to solve this problem with the tenant and what you know. Like, don't bring a
What's your track record? How have you tried to solve this?
Yes, exactly. What have you done? What do you know? What are the emails back and forth? Exactly what? And when they saw that, then they agreed on the eviction and they granted it both times, even though the moratorium was going on. And the tenants were so surprised. We're so surprised, but I'm like, you don't qualify. Okay. So you are not covered under the moratorium.
Kudos to you. So where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years?
In 3 to 5 years, I am looking at continuing to sell things. So we have about as much as we need. It's just that when we sell something, we have to replace that with something else. And so I'm hoping to go more into paper, notes and mortgages and things like that, private lending, and, helping other people get started. And so I think that's what we'll do. And I'm really looking for flexibility because I've got family on the West Coast that I really want to see. So I go out to the West Coast and I make sure I have a business that can go on regardless of where I am. So I can rent properties from the West Coast. I figured out how to do that, interview people, show a house.
Yeah, remote access to your QuickBooks.
FaceTime, make decisions. I was able to do that all from out of town. So, my business has to be able to work from anywhere.
Yes.
So that's the next 3 to 5 years is, just figuring out what are keepers and what are good times to sell things.
All right. So did you ever think real estate would allow Joanne to have the lifestyle that you used to dream about and getting up every day pursuing your own passions, even if that's being a part-time doctor?
Well, yeah, I knew we had to do it because our retirement investments and the mutual funds and so forth, that just wasn't cutting it. That totally wasn't cutting it. And I wasn't in control of it either. So you can't stake your retirement on something you don't control.
Yes. So share with us some other things that I don't know what you have scribbled down that you said that you wanted to let our listeners know.
Oh, well, one thing is with the brutally honest assessment, you have to figure out where fear is in your life because it's there for everybody. And a lot of times people end up making decisions based on fear and they don't even realize it. Because fear is all the time. But actually it's not. Once you get to know it and what's actually underneath it, some of that baggage you can put down. And the way I think of fear is that, you take a stove, it's on the back burner bubbling there, but it's not in your face and it hasn't taken you over. It's a little bubbling pot. So you keep an eye on it. And sometimes the fear can give you some good ideas because you got to integrate your emotions in your, sharp pencil and so forth, but put it in a place where it's not hurting you and it could actually be helping you, but it's not making any of your decisions.
Here's something else I can add to that. Okay. Being a policeman, being a doctor. Okay. Fear is real, but here's what I discovered. I can take that level of fear way down with knowledge, training, and experience.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So it's just this little bubbling pot on the stove, but it's not taking over. You just keep an eye on it. And, yeah.
Okay.
And so the other thing is once you go into real estate, think of it as you're going to write your own ticket plan. And so start with that. Like your plan for success isn't going to be the same as anybody else's. So you don't want to be doing what everybody else is doing. In fact, you want to get to the places that other people aren't.
Less competition.
Yes. So you want to use your skill set, whatever that may be, to be able to find your niche, identify your niche. And then the things that you're really weak at, make sure you have people in your life that help you compensate for that. Because you got to have the full picture. Nobody can figure everything out all by themselves. You have to have a team.
Yeah, nobody's an expert at everything. And the ones that try to do that have a hard time moving forward at a faster pace that they want to move forward because they believe in not training people, not getting the best people to surround yourself with that are good at what they do. So that's a home run there.
Yeah. And my other one, you're going to be surprised, but it's take the wife's advice.
Is what now?
Take the wife's advice.
Take the wife's advice. Okay. And why is that?
What I realized with 2008 and all that is that what I needed is other women owned, where the woman in the family was a primary investor, and I formed a mastermind group. I invited people that were ahead of me that I really admired, and we weren't having masterminds then. It was, like we are now. And so I formed that group in 2008, and we are still going today. And we go through, when you take the wife's advice, women, when they meet themselves, they're fluid. They go back and forth between real estate, serious issues, and then they'll go over to, well, what does your husband say about this? Like they are so fluid as far as seeing the big picture and where are your kids going to be, next year when you want to do these things. Are you going to be able to? And so I think men are not used to being brutally honest and getting that down to the nitty gritty and seeing some of the pitfalls that could be happening. Women just have a different perspective. They're very comfortable. They just go right back and forth, and they get it that it has to work with your life, or else it's not going to work.
I'll have to agree with you on this, Joanne, since you brought this up. But going back to the early 2000s, I would get in masterminds, and they were mostly men, but an occasional woman here or there. Okay. And you're right. Everything they discussed, the whole purpose of the mastermind was to polish your business, to turbocharge your business.
Yes, the guys.
I don't recall anyone talking about family concerns and how it affects family. Now, the masterminds of today, they've come a long way. And the one that I'm in today puts family first.
Okay.
Puts lifestyle first, and the business fills in the rest.
Yes.
Where it fits.
Because what's your why? What does it matter?
So remember that, I don't remember who did this, but remember like a Miracle Whip jar or quart jar, and somebody put some big rocks in there first, and then they put smaller rocks and pebbles and even sand, and they get it all in a jar. Whereas the other exercise, they put in the sand, the pebbles, and the small rocks, and this and that, and the big rocks wouldn't fit.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I had to come through 2008 with a group of women. Like, I had to really get down to the lowest level because everybody had fear, and we had to save us from ourselves at that point.
Save us from ourselves.
Yes, okay. That was our mastermind, to save it from ourselves mastermind. And we have come through every different stage of investing, every different stage of life. I think 100 times better than we would if we didn't have each other.
Still married?
So when I'll give them advice, I'll give them advice and they'll say, well, who said that? And I'll say, Mike Butler. And they'll say, oh, okay, we'll listen to Mike Butler. But they won't listen to most people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the kudos there, Joanne. Yeah, that is awesome. So are you having fun?
Yes, because I have freedom, financial freedom, that I can write time off of my schedule. And I don't take any new clients in the psychology office that won't have virtual sessions if needed. So I can be going somewhere else. And I don't take people that are, that needy that they can't get their stuff accomplished. I do family business consulting. So I work primarily with my business as advisors to businesses and professionals. So I work with people who understand a schedule and that you can work from different places and get a lot accomplished and things like that. So I've had to change who I work with.
Okay, so we started this off with family. I'm going to wrap it up with family.
Yeah, dude.
So you're having fun and you're happy, and with your true financial independence that you have achieved. What about hubby? Is he having fun?
As long as he speaks up, he has fun. Like, he needs to speak up. And so when he speaks up and says, like you said to me last week, I really don't want to drive to Spartanburg anymore, and I said, I hear you. I don't want to do that either. And so you listen to him. Like, women will listen more, and that they'll hear and they say, it's a higher priority to me to have a happy hubby than some money-making thing in Spartanburg.
True.
So I will sell those. You listen, and then you take action based on what they're telling you.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be in trouble.
And she believes in education, in professional education, and your son's an attorney. Mm-hmm. So is he having fun?
He is. And he is very interested in real estate.
Finally.
He came up with us. No, well, because you can't blame him. His first jobs were doing the clean outs.
Yeah.
And then he graduated to yard work.
Yeah.
And then he graduated to power tools.
And painting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he said, Mom, I want to get legal tools. I know power tools, but I want legal tools. And so he went and got legal tools. And he's in California. He bought a house that he could sell tomorrow and make money on, because he did it New Year's Eve. I said, if somebody's serious, we researched the seller. If they really need to sell their house, they want to sell it by the end of the year. I said, put your ridiculous offer in. And he did. And the real estate agents were really mad. They said, look, if you just wait till the spring, you'll get a lot more money. But I said, no, what you can afford is what you can afford. So the sellers took it and the agents were mad, but my son is happy because he had built-in equity. He's safe.
Well, kudos to Dr. Joanne Armstrong and your family, your achievements, your business, your real estate, everything you touch turns to champagne. So even the ugly deals. So I want to thank you again, Dr. Joanne Armstrong, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Glad you joined us for another episode of 5-Hour Real Estate Week. The best thing you can do now is put this information to action. To help you get started, Mike created a free resource for you called How to Buy 50 Houses a Year, Even with Your Job. Download it now by going to mikebutler.com/50 houses. And we'll see you on the next episode.